Hello, I'm Earl Lane, Executive Director of the AAAS Kavli Science Journalism Awards. Welcome to our virtual ceremony for the 2021 winners of these international awards, which are endowed by the Capley Foundation. The awards program, administered by AAAS since 1945, honors distinguished science reporting for a general audience. I'm always struck by the range and quality of the entries that we receive, and this year was no exception. We have a terrific lineup of winners. Laura Helmuth, Editor-in-Chief of Scientific American and a longtime judge for the contest, will be our moderator and will introduce you to the winners. I'll now turn it over to Laura.
Thanks so much, Earl, and thank you to AAAS and the Capley Foundation for offering these amazing awards, and thank you to all the journalists who entered the awards this year. I think I speak for all the judges when I say it is an absolute joy to see these entries and just to see the brilliant science journalism that was produced in the past year. But it is really difficult. It's one of the hardest things we do all year, I think, is choosing these winners. And I want to thank all of you in the audience for your interest in and for your support of science journalism. It's never been more important. I hope you enjoy the presentation. The winners are really inspiring and a model for all of us of how to communicate better about science, how to really understand how the world works, and share our discoveries in a way that's really engaging and sticky and meaningful and memorable. Now I'd like to introduce Sudeep Parikh, who is the AAAS CEO and the executive publisher of the Science family of journals.
In extraordinary and challenging times like we've been living in, informed science journalism has never been more important. Whether covering urgent topics like the COVID-19 pandemic and climate change, exploring important issues of equity and ethics in the conduct of science, or explaining the natural world in all of its awe-inspiring wonder, our awardees show once again the value of journalism that enlightens and engages, that helps make sense of a complex world without dumbing it down. And that's so important, without dumbing it down. Congratulations to all the winners, and let me also thank the screeners and judges. They remark every year about the quality of the entries and how difficult it can be to select just 2 winners in each category. Let me now introduce Stacy Bailey, Director of Communications and Prizes at the Capley Foundation.
Thank you, Sudeep. And thank you to Earl Lane and Emily Hughes for your leadership with the AAAS Kavli Science Journalism Awards, to the judging committees, the screeners, and the more than 1,000 entrants in this year's awards. This is remarkable. Each year, in every category, you inspire and move us with your remarkable reporting. Thank you for all that you do. We appreciate you, we applaud you, and everything you do for the world. Congratulations. Over to you, Laura.
Thank you, Stacy. And now we get to meet our winners. For excellence in reporting for a large outlet, the Silver Award goes to Roxanne Kamsey for a story for Elemental on whether the virus that causes COVID-19 might be able to stick around in the body much longer than initially believed. Her piece offers a nuanced look at confusing and incomplete data as scientists struggled to better understand the activity of the virus and the limitation of existing tests for detecting its presence in the body. Kamsey also offered a detailed look at the persistence in the body of other viruses, such as HIV, Epstein-Barr, and varicella zoster, which causes chickenpox. Paul Baskin, the North America editor for Times Higher Education, called Kamsey's piece, quote, a creative, out-of-the-box, and personal-level look at a critically important topic.
The story behind the story is that it almost never happened. I was curious about how long the virus that causes COVID-19 lasts in the body, but the problem was scientists didn't really have a good idea either. I was really lucky that my editor at Elemental, Alexandra Sifferlin, believed that if I expanded my investigation to learn about how long other viruses last in the body, I could get some context for the pandemic coronavirus. And I was also lucky I connected with scientists like Diane Griffin at Johns Hopkins University, who told me about the way that viruses like measles sometimes linger in the body for years. And I connected with a very brave college student named Natalie, who was isolating in her family's basement for around a month because she kept testing positive for COVID-19. Thank you so much to AAAS and the Capley Foundation for recognizing the work of nerds like me who try to make sense of the science and who are curious and want to communicate it with others. This award motivates me to keep digging into tough science stories. Thank you.
For excellence in science reporting for a large outlet, the Gold Award goes to Mariano Zafra and Javier Salas of El País, the Spanish newspaper, for a widely shared multimedia piece on how readily the coronavirus that causes COVID-19 can spread in a living room, a bar, and a classroom. The judging panel for this category, which is one I served on, praised the team for examining how the SARS-CoV-2 virus spreads at a time when understanding the aerosol dispersal of the virus was still developing. The article quickly became the most viewed content in El País history, with more than 12 million readers in its original Spanish version and more than 7 million in English. As I said after the judging session, people who were too confused or scared or angry to comprehend other stories saw this one and just got it. It's one of the most effective pieces of journalism I've ever seen. Mariano?
Thank you very much for this honor. This has been a revolutionary year for visual and scientific journalism. The union of these two worlds has proven to be a powerful communication tool, bringing very important information to reach many people, easily, even beyond our usual audience. I am very grateful to El País for believing in this type of journalism that matters, for giving me the time and space that this kind of journalism needs. Not everyone has this privilege. Thank you very much.
For excellence in science reporting for a small outlet, the Silver Award goes to Tony Bartlemy of the Post and Courier of Charleston, South Carolina, for his story on the Eastern Black Rail, dubbed the Ghost Bird for its elusiveness. The story went beyond the plight of a threatened species to also discuss the impacts of climate change, the obsessions of a South Carolina scientist who has been studying the Black Rail, and the fraught ways in which federal agencies and political institutions sometimes cope with species that capture the public's imagination. It's a riveting piece driven by a stunningly eloquent narration, said Judge Lauren Weber of Kaiser Health News. She added, science journalism at its best. This is Tony's second AAAS Kavli Award, and here's Tony.
First, to the AAAS Kavli Award judges, thank you for considering my work. And to Christy Hand, the scientist here in South Carolina I chronicled for Ghost Bird, thank you for opening my eyes to the wonderful world of birds, especially the mysterious Eastern Black Rail. A confession, I wasn't a birder when I began this project. I like birds, but I'd never really given them much thought. But the great thing about being a journalist is that sometimes you learn about things that you thought you weren't interested in. And in a time of ingrained beliefs, in beliefs that often aren't grounded in facts, I'm just so grateful to have had a chance to challenge my own assumptions and maybe open some readers' eyes as well. I really loved working on Ghost Bird, and I'm just so very grateful for this wonderful recognition.
For excellence in science reporting for a small outlet, the Gold Award goes to Athira Parancheri, writing for 52, a digital publication based in India. In her winning piece, she explored deep questions about evolutionary biology while reporting on the diversity of new species being discovered in India. She is the first journalist working for an Indian publication to win the AAAS Kavli Award since the contest went global in 2015. India is considered mega diverse, with one of the largest number of species found nowhere else in the world. Reports of new species can help, quote, piece together the puzzle of the present. How and why did we get here? Parancheri wrote. Other findings, she said, provide warnings about the future. What would the world possibly look like if we don't amend the way we live? Judge Lauren Weber of Kaiser Health News said, the only thing better than Parancheri's prose is her ability to draw you into a fascinating scientific discovery of a species, spinning up your knowledge along the way. Here is Athira.
Scientists keep discovering a lot of new species in India, and as a journalist, I've covered a lot of these findings. But what does it really mean to find a species new to science? What are the stories they tell us about the past, about the present, and what the future could hold with the rates of climate change and global warming we're seeing? That was what led me to the story. And I'd like to thank AAAS and the Kavli Foundation for this recognition. It's a huge honor to win this award. Thank you. I'd also like to thank the entire team at 52, the publication for which I wrote the story as a freelancer. Thank you also to the editors for honing the story, and my sources for trusting me with their work and sharing their perspectives. Thank you.
The Silver Award for Science Reporting in Depth goes to Martja Bakker of De Volkskrant in the Netherlands for a sensitive account of the life and death of 2 rhesus monkeys that were used in research to develop a COVID vaccine. It's a somber story told through interviews with the caregivers, researchers, and ethicists involved, as well as critics who fiercely oppose animal testing. The judges praised Bakker's even-handed approach to a controversial topic. Quote, "Monkey testing is such a sad business that many of us would prefer not to hear the details, even when those monkeys have been sacrificed on the altar of COVID-19 vaccines," said Judge Amy Maxman, senior reporter at Nature. Martja Bakker has written a story that seems to come as close to the truth as one can hope, which pays respect to the monkeys and their caretakers without glorifying the job or shying away from its ethical dilemmas. Here is Martja.
I'm very honored with this award. Thanks a lot to AAAS and the Capley Foundation. I'm thankful to the researchers at the Biomedical Primate Research Center in Rijswijk, especially to Babs Verstrepen, who gave us access and a warm welcome, even though they knew that monkey research is a sensitive topic. I'd also like to thank the head of the science desk, Tony Mudde, and the Volkskrant to let me work on this story for such a long time. Newspaper journalism tends to be a rapid thing, but I believe slow journalism is just as important to tell what is going on in the world. Thanks also to Henk Wildschut, the photographer who joined me in this adventure, and to my friend Nico Oldenhuis, who translated the story into English so that people outside of the Netherlands could also get to know this piece.
The Gold Award for Science Reporting in Depth goes to Noah Gallagher Shannon for a New York Times Magazine piece, "What's Going On Inside the Fearsome Thunderstorms of Cordoba Province." Shannon followed a University of Illinois research team that is studying monster storms in northern Argentina as climate change increases both the size and intensity of storms worldwide. The team works closely with local meteorologists and agricultural communities to collect data on remote storm surges, often in areas scientists are unable to access in real time. Shannon's descriptions of the storms are hauntingly beautiful. "He made them sound like living beings," said Judge Alex Kuffner, energy and environment reporter for the Providence Journal. Here is Noah.
Thank you so much for this incredibly cool award. Being recognized by the AAAS, the Kavli Foundation, and most importantly, my peers writing science stories is an honor that means a lot to me. When I travel to Argentina, I hope to write a story not just about climate change and extreme weather, but about the enormous human endeavor that goes into making better models and life-saving forecasts. Stories about the ongoing crisis in our natural world are difficult to report, far too often overlooked, and can themselves be a human endeavor to write. So I'm very grateful for the encouragement this award represents and for the many people who contributed to it. Thank you to Steve Nesbitt, Josh Werman, and all the scientists involved in the Relampago Field Campaign, to Willie Staley, Jake Silverstein, and the staff of the New York Times Magazine, and to Mitch DeBrowner for his photography and friendship. Thank you.
For excellence in magazine reporting, the Silver Award goes to Richard Van Noorden of Nature for a piece on the ethical questions that haunt facial recognition research, including the use of trained algorithms to distinguish faces of predominantly Muslim Uyghur people in China. Van Noorden's story included a survey of more than 480 researchers with published papers in facial recognition and associated fields. 2/3 of the respondents said studies used to recognize or predict personal characteristics from appearance should be done only with informed consent. Yet most researchers now collect facial images, in some cases millions of them, without asking permission. Judge Kathy Edwards of the BBC called the story an impactful contribution to the debate about facial recognition technology. The Uyghur study highlights how urgently we need to consider the ethics of such research. Here is Richard.
Thank you to the AAAS and the Kavli Foundation for this honour. For this story, I wanted to dig into the pushback against unethical uses of facial recognition but specifically the roles of scientists, their institutions, and scholarly journals, going back to how this technology is developed in research studies. As those I talked to said, scientists alone can't stop companies and governments surveilling people, but they can campaign for stronger regulations and reflect on whether their own work benefits communities. Thanks to the many brilliant journalists and campaigners and researchers who are mentioned in the story, my editor, Rich Monastersky, and everyone at Nature for allowing me the time to pursue this story through the pandemic. I'm delighted that this award recognises the importance of this issue.
The Gold Award for Magazine Reporting goes to Megan Multeney for a piece in Wired on the historically flawed science behind the World Health Organization's initial guidance that the virus that causes COVID-19 spreads primarily via droplets from coughing rather than exhaled aerosol particles. Reality is far messier, Multeney wrote, with particles much larger than 5 microns staying afloat and behaving like aerosols. In a riveting story, Multeney followed scientist Lindsay Marr on her mission to track down the historically incorrect distinction between droplets and aerosols. A powerfully told and important story, said BBC producer Kathy Edwards. Megan Multeney skillfully conveyed the dangers of falling back on mistaken dogma. Here's Megan.
Wow, what an honor to be chosen for this award, especially at a time when science journalism has never been more vital for navigating the increasingly unpredictable world around us. This story started with a desire to find concrete answers about how the coronavirus spread and if we were doing enough to stop it. But ultimately, it became a story about how science, like all human endeavors, is messy, political, and ever-evolving. I'm grateful to all the healthcare workers and researchers who generously helped me tell this story, especially Lindsay Marr and Katie Randall at Virginia Tech. Thank you so much to AAAS and the Kavli Foundation, and to my editors at Wired who gave me the time and space to go deep down this medical history rabbit hole. I hope it illustrates the humility and collaboration required to face the threat of emerging pandemic pathogens.
The Silver Award for Video Spot News Feature Reporting goes to Nova producer Arlo Perez Esquivel for his PBS segment about underreported numbers of COVID cases and deaths in Mexico. Perez told of leaving his home in Boston to stay with family in Mexico because he thought he would be safer from COVID. Instead, he soon realized that people were dying all around him and that cases of the disease were being seriously underreported. In a story both informative and deeply personal, he found that many Mexican residents were avoiding COVID-19 testing due to cultural and social stigma around the virus, and that many deaths are not reported in order to bypass the mandatory cremation of COVID-19 victims in favor of a more traditional Catholic burial. Perez reminds us of why diversity in science reporting matters, said British author and judge Angela Saini. Through a personal story, he investigates an overlooked aspect of the pandemic. And here is Arlo.
While I was living through the pandemic in my hometown in Western Mexico, I noticed that the COVID-19 numbers, the official ones, were not matching the reality that my community was experiencing. As both a science communicator and a native to that region, I was in the unique position to give a voice to a community that is often overlooked. I never expected my coverage of COVID-19 in a remote part of Mexico to garner the attention that it did, let alone to win an award. This recognition motivates me to continue embarking on projects that shed a light on untold stories. Thank you so much for the people involved with AAAS and to Nova PBS for all the support that they gave me. This means more than you can possibly imagine.
The Gold Award for Video Spot News Feature Reporting goes to Michael Werner, Joe Hansen, Rachel Rainey, and Brandon Arolfo for 2 PBS Terra segments on efforts to save threatened ecosystems. The first discussed the positive impact of returning bison to a 40,000-acre expanse of prairie in northeastern Oklahoma that had been heavily overgrazed by cattle. The second looked at efforts to save and to better understand a section of old-growth rainforest on Canada's Vancouver Island. Scientists continue to learn more about such ancient trees and what would be lost if they disappear, including the fascinating network of fungi that live beneath the soil and in organic mats of canopy soils in the treetops. The sweeping cinematography highlights the beauty of each ecosystem, in what Judge Angela Saini called masterclasses in filmmaking, setting a benchmark for all short science documentaries. Here is Michael Werner, who is receiving his second AAAS Kavli Award.
The Kavli Awards are one of the highest honors in science journalism, and I'm so grateful to be here today to accept this award. And I couldn't have done this without an amazing team by my side. PBS Digital Studios and PBS North Carolina gave the producers of this series the support and encouragement to experiment and try new things. My co-writer Joe Hansen brings fresh ideas and a depth of science knowledge that's invaluable. Rachel Rainey is an ardent supporter of this series and brings a keen filmmaker's eye. Gabby Ewing and Nicole Ure are the managers behind the scenes who often don't get the limelight, but whose work is critical to making these stories. Thank you to Arvind Singh Dang, the fantastic cinematographer and collaborator who gave so much to the Ancient Forest story. And a huge thank you to all the people who participated in these videos, especially Karina Mafune, Bob Hamilton, Sam Fullendorf, Shauna Knight, and Bill Jones. Without you, these stories literally would not have been possible. Thank you.
The Silver Award for Video In-Depth Reporting goes to Adam Bolt, Regina Sobel, Elliot Kirshner, Sarah Goodwin, and Meredith DeSalazar for Human Nature, a NOVA production by the Wonder Collaborative for GBH Boston. The production team explained the science of CRISPR, a remarkable gene editing technology that may open a new chapter on what it means to be human. For sickle cell disease, replacing just a single misplaced base molecule in the cell's DNA can produce a cure. But how far should we go? Should parents be allowed to choose their child's eye color or height? The scientists who pioneered human genome studies and the developers of CRISPR technology are grappling with such questions, as are bioethicists who worry that decisions may be made without sufficient public engagement. Dutch freelance journalist and judge Joop de Vries called Human Nature a great, balanced, touching movie with so many impressive scientists featured. Here's director and co-writer Adam Bolt to accept for the team.
Well, first of all, I want to thank AAAS and the Kavli Foundation for this wonderful recognition. One thing that I learned in the course of making this film is that science and filmmaking have a lot in common, and a big one is the importance of collaboration. So I share this award with an incredible team. My brilliant co-writer, Regina Sobel, Elliot Kirshner, who masterminded this whole project, our amazing producers, Meredith DeSalazar and Sarah Goodwin, Steve Tyler and Harry Jackson on our editorial team, Derek Reich, who shot the amazing cinematography for the film, and Keegan DeWitt, who did the music, Ned Darakhan, who created the graphics that were so important for telling such a complex story. And I want to thank Sandbox Films, the Moore Foundation, and Dan Rather for supporting this project from the beginning, and Rocco Films and Nova for making sure people saw it. And last but not least, thanks to the scientists and patients who trusted us to tell this complex story about a breakthrough technology that's going to have a huge impact on all of our futures. Thanks again.
The Gold Award for Video In-Depth Reporting goes to Sharon Shattuck, Ian Cheney, Manette Patla, and Amy Brand for Picture a Scientist, a NOVA production by Uprising LLC for GBH Boston. The film describes the experiences of three women, biologist Nancy Hopkins, chemist Rachel Burks, and geologist Jane Willenbring, who were subject to subtle slights and, in some cases, brutal harassment as they sought to build careers in science. Women still make up less than a quarter of STEM professionals in the United States, with the numbers even lower for women of color such as Burks. The film combines powerful personal stories with compelling statistics to explain how women have been treated in the sciences over the years and how much remains to be done. Judge Guy Gugliotta, a freelance science reporter formerly with the Washington Post, called the film a comprehensive, engaging, and unequivocal expose of discrimination against women in science and the courageous and ultimately successful efforts to denounce and combat it. Here is director-producer Sharon Shattuck to accept on behalf of the team.
Thank you, AAAS and the Kavli Foundation for this honor. When we started out making what would become Picture a Scientist, we focused on a brave group of women professors at MIT who suspected that they might be being discriminated against. The data that they collected not only proved their discrimination, it sparked a sea change in the way women scientists are treated at institutions worldwide. But of course, the fight for equality in the sciences isn't over. Picture a Scientist is the result of countless behind-the-scenes conversations with women across the sciences, social scientists who shared their research with us, and most importantly, the 3 brave women at the heart of the film who let us tell their story. We are so grateful that the film continues to connect with audiences and spark conversations around the issues that women scientists face, and we're hopeful that this award will help expand the film's impact even more. Thank you.
The Silver Award for Audio goes to Fiona Broom, Charles Pensulo, Jubiel Zulu, Brooke Abdu, and Harrison Lewis for a 3-part series for the Africa Science Focus podcast of SciDevNet, an online news site that covers science for the developing world. A team of editors and Africa-based reporters described how coronavirus cases and deaths had increased across sub-Saharan Africa, how misinformation was spreading and affecting vaccine confidence, and how health specialists in Africa were mounting vaccination programs while also trying to calm patient fears. The judges praised the series as a great example of journalism in service to the community. This engaging set of stories answered listeners' questions in real time, tackling misinformation head-on, countering it with reliable and well-sourced information, said Judge Tina Hessman-Say, a staff writer for Science News. Giving people correct information and dispelling myths and disinformation is one of the most important roles journalists could serve in this pandemic. The staff at SciDevNet have served that role admirably. Fiona Broom, Deputy Editor for Features at SciDevNet, will accept the award.
Last year was an amazing year for science journalism, and for our fledgling podcast to be recognized among the world's best news media is truly an honor. On behalf of Harry, Jubil, Brooke, and Charles, 1,000 thanks to AAAS and the Capley Foundation. Over 3 episodes totaling 45 minutes, we included more than 15 voices from all over sub-Saharan Africa to help us dig into why COVID-19 cases had suddenly begun to rise. These voices ranged from people on the streets who told us how poor communication from governments was leaving knowledge gaps that were being filled with misinformation. We spoke with a scientist who contributed to what was at that time the only vaccine clinical trial on the continent. And we met the fact checkers who were out there every day battling myths and disinformation. Journalists and scientists from the global south have often been left out of the torrent of news that's been produced during the pandemic, and we're so proud that Africa Science Focus has been recognized with this award.
The Gold Award for Audio goes to Amanda Buckowitz and Nicole Mortellero, producers of a special edition of CBC Radio Canada's long-running Quirks and Quarks program on Black people in science. The program examined the history of biased and false race science that led to misunderstanding and mistreatment of Black people by the scientific and medical communities, creating obstacles for them to participate in the scientific process. Bukovitz and Mortellero spoke to Black researchers about their work and how they are trying to increase recognition for the contributions of Black scientists and build more opportunities and representation across all disciplines of science. Judge Rich Monastersky, Chief Features Editor for Nature in Washington, D.C., said, "The show explored the difficult and important topic of racism in science, from its historical roots to the impact that it still has, and to the ways that researchers are combating the problem. It should be required listening for all students studying science, as well as practicing scientists."
My colleague Amanda Buckowitz and I would like to extend our thanks to the AAAS and the Kavli Foundation for this award. It's truly an honor to be in the presence of so many talented journalists, people who are passionate about science. I also want to thank the Canadian Broadcasting Corporation and everyone at our talk show, at our radio show, Quirks and Quarks, as well as Jim Levins and the normal host, Bob McDonald. Racism in science, both in the past and present, is an important topic to discuss because we need to learn from these lessons in the past in order to move forward. Amanda came up with this great idea and I got so excited about it simply for that reason. We tend to think of science as being objective, but it's not always. So talking about it is the first step. Next is doing something about it. So once again, thank you very much for this honor.
The Silver Award for Children's Science News goes to Stephen Orens for a Science News for Students piece about dead whales serving as deep-sea buffets. When whales die and sink to the ocean's bottom, their bodies can provide a feast to smaller organisms, including living things found nowhere else on Earth. Think of it as a watery free-for-all, Orens tells his readers. Hagfish, octopods, squid, sharks, crabs, and worms all gather and devour. It's a rich ecosystem all of its own. In deep water, where relatively few animals live, the feast may last for years. For marine biologist, Orens says, the body of a dead whale provides an opportunity to study life in one of the least explored places on Earth, the bottom of the ocean. With such clear, vivid language, he takes his young readers on an underseas adventure. This story really captures the imagination and builds out a lovely image of the weirdness of the seafloor, said Blythe Terrell, an editor for Gimlet Media. The videos embedded were absolutely mesmerizing. This is Orens' second AAAS Kavli Award in the Children's Science News category, and here's Stephen.
I pitched this story to Science News for students after seeing video footage of the seafloor captured by a robotic rover. I set out to capture the wonder and curiosity of that other world at the bottom of the ocean. Thank you to AAAS and the Capley Foundation for such an honor, and especially for recognizing work that is written and edited for a young audience. I feel honored and lucky to work with extraordinary editors. It is a gift and an experience that can elevate a story. So a big thank you to Janet Raloff and Sarah Zielinski at Science News for Students, both for this piece and for setting such high standards in journalism focused on a student audience. Thank you.
The Gold Award for Children's Science News goes to Bridget Henwood, Estelle Caswell, Kimberly Moss, and Elizabeth Sheltons of Vox for 3 video segments on bird poop, the secret history of dirt, and how to be a cloud detective. The Vox team uses the discovery of a bird's nest on a porch swing as an opportunity to view hatchling robins closely and to answer some important questions about bird life, including why the crowded nest is not eventually covered in bird poop. It turns out the newborns present their poop to their parents in convenient fecal sacs, which the adults gladly remove from the nest. The other segments on the secret history of dirt and the identification of clouds are equally captivating, the judges found. Jeffrey Kamadi, a science journalist based in Nairobi, Kenya, applauded the team's storytelling technique that will get any young mind interested in science. Young viewers are asked, he said, to take part in an activity so they can experience and observe for themselves the difference between the humus-rich dirt and the opposite of that. And we all know how young people love to get involved in doing stuff. Here is Bridget Henwood to accept on behalf of the team.
Thanks so much to AAAS and the Capley Foundation for this Children's Science News Award. We love covering science at Vox, from coronavirus to climate change, and these 3 videos were part of a new experiment for our team. We wanted to create some explainers that were geared specifically toward kids ages 9 to 12. And to do that, we chose subjects that were universally relatable: bird poop, dirt, and clouds, something that kids all over the world can see and interact with. We learned a lot when we were making these videos, and we're really grateful to be included with the rest of the winners. Thanks again.
So congratulations to all the winners, and thanks to all of you for your support of this award and for your interest in science journalism. And for all the journalists out there, please do submit your best work for the next award cycle. The judges are eager to see it. And thank you for all the work you're doing during this exhausting time and this endless pandemic. Thanks again, and I'm going to hand it over to Earl.
Thanks for joining us. We will be posting this award ceremony to our website, sjawards.AAAS.org. You can also go there for a news release that has links to the winning entries. Congratulations again to all of our winners.